class? Am I audible to all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I hope you all have already written down the equations that are required to solve problems on Geneva wheel. This is one solved problem from the textbook, that is example 16.1. The problem statement is here, a rotary work table is driven by a Geneva mechanism with 6 slots as shown in the figure 16.7. The figure is already shown to you. Here it is. So this is the figure, the Geneva wheel figure. This has 6 slots. This is how the Geneva wheel mechanism looks in the given problem statement 16.1. The driver rotates at 30 revolutions per minute. Determine the cycle time, available processing time, and the lost time each cycle to index the table. So just write down the given data. So this is the given data. Given that it is a Geneva mechanism, n subscript s, that is number of slots, is equal to 6. Capital N value is given, that is 30 revolutions per minute. The driver rotates at 30 revolutions per minute. What you have to find? You have to find out what is the cycle time Tc, what is the processing time Ts, and what is the indexing time, that is Tr. So we have equations for all of this. You can just take the equations and start solving the problem. So we know the total cycle time is given by Tc is equals to n, 1 by n. We already know what is the value of n here. So it's simple substitution. 1 divided by 30 should give you the cycle time in minutes. Correct? All are getting this answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there is one attendance recorder that we all are using. I hope you all are aware of. That attendance recorder also shows who was present for how much period of time in that 45 minutes class. So if you are not very much aware of it, I can even share that data. I just checked, there are hardly 5 to 10 students who are there throughout the lecture. Rest of you are not there in the lecture. So don't make me track that and mark the attendance. So this is a last warning. Make sure that all of you are there present and trying to understand the things that are put up here. Simply later you all will be having problem with respect to attendance. And this unit is more on problems. Okay? Problems here. You are sure to get problems for this unit because the theory is very much simple in this. Problems are very important. The analysis part mainly, which will start tomorrow. So all are getting this answer. We'll move to the next. That is, you have to find what is Ts. The processing time, we have the equation for it, that is 180 plus theta divided by 360 into n. We know the value of n. Do we know the value of theta? But we know how to find the value of theta. Okay, the equation for indexing time is 180 minus theta divided by 360 into n. But before that, we need to know what is theta. So it is given by 360 divided by ns. So what is the value of theta you get here?
60.
60, ma'am.
So you get 60. Next, what is Ts? It's direct substitution. We know what is n, we know what is theta. 180 plus 60 divided by 360 into 30.
Ma'am, can you show the previous slide once again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So are you all getting this answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Find what is ER, the indexing time.
Zero point zero one.
0.01. So this is a simple example of Geneva wheel mechanism. This is a solved example from the textbook. I hope all have understood how to solve.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, shall we proceed to the next problem? The
Yes,
unsolved problems on Geneva wheel. Okay, moving on to the next problem. So these are the unsolved problems from textbook. The statement is here. Problem number 16.1. A rotary work table is driven by a Geneva mechanism with 5 slots. The driver rotates at 48 revolutions per minute. Determine the cycle time, available processing time, and the indexing time each cycle. The problem has to be solved same as you have solved the previous problem. So please start and get the answer. TC is this. Are you all getting the value correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
TS and TR. Theta is 72 degrees.
TS 0.014.
So TS is 0.0145.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And TR 0.0375.
Ma'am, can you show the last slide?
Huh? Yes, what do you want?
The previous slide.
Previous slide.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
All of you have completed this?
Yes, ma'am.
TR value you are getting correct?
Yes, ma'am. 0.00625.
Yes, I can't hear you.
Ma'am, we are getting 0.00625.
Okay, so this TR value that I have shown here is not correct. 0.0375 is the answer that I have written here, but the correct answer is here, 0.00625 minutes. Okay, let's move to the next problem. This is also an unsolved problem. The statement is as follows. A Geneva with 6 slots is used to operate the work table of a dial indexing mechanism. The slowest workstation on the dial indexing mechanism has an operation time of 2.5 seconds. So the table must be in a dwell position for this length of time. At what rotational speed must the driven member of Geneva mechanism be turned to provide this dwell time? And what is the indexing time each cycle? So this is what is given and what you have to find out. So we know theta. First of all, we'll find what is theta. It is said that it has 6 slots. So theta value is 60 degrees. Next, you have to find what is n. In order to find n, you can either use these formulas.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, to find n, we can use Tc is equal to 1 upon n, that equation as well.
Yeah, you can. But here I have written this by mistake. The given value is not TC, it is TS.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, if TC value is given, then you can use 1 by n. But this is not correct. This is not TC. This is TS actually. So given value is TS. Therefore, you'll have to substitute it in this equation to find n.
Okay,
If
ma'am.
TC is given, then you can use 1 by n. But this is TS, not TC. Because here it's clearly given that the slowest workstation on the dial indexing machine has an operation time of 2.5. So the table must be in dwell position for this length of time. So when it is said dwell position means what? It is actually getting serviced or processed. So 2.5 seconds is the service time or processing or the dwell time that is given. So
Okay.
this is TS, not TC. Please change it. So what is the value of n you get here?
$16
16.
RPS.
So all are getting this? So having known what is n, you can now find out what is the indexing time. What is indexing time? TR. So we know the equation, we know the value for theta, we know the value for n. Substitute and get the answer.
Zero point 020.
All are getting this answer? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There is one more problem that is there. I have not solved it. You can just try to solve that problem. It is in continuation with this problem. They have said that solve the previous problem using Geneva with 8 slots. So here only the value of ns will change to 8 slots. Rest of the things will remain the same. With ns value changed, you can just solve the problem in the similar way. So I have not solved that, you can just try it. So shall we proceed to the next topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we will be discussing about the storage buffer and control of production line, and then we'll stop. So you must have all known what is buffer, right? Most of the times when it comes to watching any videos or something like that, when you try to watch them online, we say that, okay, whenever the video does not continue smoothly, we say that it is getting buffered. So we all have come across this word buffer, but let's see how this word buffer is used in a production line. Okay, so we call it as storage buffer here. What is this? A storage buffer, it is a location in the production line where parts can be collected and temporarily stored before proceeding to subsequent workstations. So this is a location, the storage buffer, it is a location where the parts will be stored temporarily, and then they will be moved to the next stations. Okay, so as I said, production line is nothing but a sequence of all the workstations arranged. So the part has to be moved from one station to the next and it has to follow a certain sequence. So these storage buffers are basically locations which will be in between these workstations, and on these locations called as the storage buffers, you can temporarily store the parts. So instead of moving it to the next workstation for any of the processing operations, you can store it on the storage buffer. Okay, so it's not necessary that you always store the parts temporarily at the storage buffer. There are certain conditions when you actually have to use the storage buffer. So the storage buffer, it can be manually operated or it may be automated. So the buffer storages which are there in between the workstations, they can either be manually operated or you can automate them. So when it is automated, a storage buffer consists of a mechanism to accept the parts from the upstream workstation, a place to store the parts, and a mechanism to supply the parts to the downstream station. I hope this is clear what is an upstream workstation and what is a downstream workstation. Now suppose if you imagine 3 workstations, workstation number 1, besides that you have workstation number 2, and the third is workstation number 3. If you consider workstation number 2, the station number 1, okay, that will be the upstream workstation from where the parts are coming in. And the downstream workstation is the one which is going to supply the parts to, or the part will next move to. So this is just a simple example to explain what is an upstream workstation and what is a downstream workstation. So if you consider 3 workstations, of course there are number of workstations arranged in a line or maybe in the rotary way. So the workstation before workstation 2 will be the upstream workstations, and those which are after workstation 2 are going to be the downstream workstations. Okay, so a key parameter of a storage buffer is its storage capacity. That is the number of work parts it is capable of holding. So this is very important. The buffer storage, the location that we are talking about, where you can store the parts temporarily, we should know what is the capacity of that storage buffer, whether it can hold one part, hundreds, thousands, or infinite number of parts. Okay, so knowing its capacity is very important. And this buffer capacity usually we denote it by small b, alphabet B for ball, small b, buffer. So storage buffer may be located between every pair of adjacent stations or between line stages containing multiple stations. So as we know that automated production line, it has a number of workstations. So this storage buffer, you can either have which is a location basically, this storage buffer, you can either have it adjacent to every station. For example, suppose if you have 10 workstations in line, station number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on up to 10 workstations, you can have 9 buffer storages. That is one buffer storage in between station 1, 2, one buffer storage in between station 2, 3, and so on. So if there are 10 stations, you can have 9 buffer storages, or you can have 2, 3, and so on. So here it is said that buffer storage, it can be in between line stages. What is a stage in production line? As I said, suppose if you have 10 stations in line, if you divide it into 2, 5 on this side, that is on the left side, and 5 on the right side, then those 5 stations, that is called as one stage. Okay, so there is this one stage which is an upstream stage, and the other side of the line is going to be called as the downstream stage. So you can have a buffer storage either in between the stages, or you can have them adjacent to every workstation. So here is a diagram which shows a buffer storage, which is one storage in between 2 stages. So as I said, stage, this is one stage which has number of workstations lined in up here. Likewise, you have them here also. So this is stage 1. It can have any number of workstations. Here they have taken 4 workstations. You can have 5, 6, depends. Okay, if you want, you can equally divide the station into half, or you can equally divide it into 3 stages. If you have 3 stages, you'll have 2 buffer storages. Suppose if you consider 10 stations, you can have 1 buffer storage after 3, then after 6 workstations. So here shown in the figure is the case of 1 storage buffer between 2 stages. So you have the parts entering, processing operations taking place, and then you have the parts moving through the storage buffer where the parts are temporarily stored. Okay, this basically stands very important when we come across 2 concepts here. One is called as starving, and the other one is called as blocking of workstations. Okay, so what basically means, what do we mean by starving and blocking? Now, if you consider this workstation, this production line, okay, we know that we have this number of workstations. Suppose if one of the workstation breaks down, there is some repair, something goes wrong with one of the workstation here. Okay, something goes wrong, say at this station. What will happen then? All the parts which are actually moving in a sequence, say there's part which is getting processed here, it comes out, it goes here, it comes out. Now it has to get processed here. Because this has stopped working, there has to be some time given for the repair, some time given for maintenance, maybe whatever is the reason for this to break down. What will happen? These 3 stations are working fine, they will start producing the parts, but things will get stocked up here. It will not move to the next station, right? In such cases, in such situations, the buffer storage plays a very important role. Okay, now suppose instead of this workstation, suppose if workstation number 5 goes into a breakdown. If this is broken down, the workstations ahead of it will not get the parts to process, because the work parts have to follow a sequence, right? They have to go to this stage and this workstation get processed, then it has to proceed to the next. But as this has broken down, these will not function, but these will not get affected. Stage 1 will not get affected. What can stage 1 do? It can go on producing, and the parts temporarily go or get stored in the buffer storage here. Okay, suppose if this buffer storage was not there, what would have happened? This one stage breaks down. Because this part cannot move ahead, everything stops. So these stages become very much dependent, the workstations become very much dependent on each other. In order to avoid that, so that one workstation, if it breaks down, so that the whole production line does not break down, buffer storage is very much important. So that when you split the production line into stages, you can at least have stages working fine instead of the whole production line getting shut because of one of the breakdowns at the stations or one of the workstations. Several reasons why storage buffers are used on automated production line. So first is to reduce the impact of station breakdown. So what happens, storage buffer between stages on a production line, it's going to permit one stage to continue operation while the other stage is down for repair. So as I just explained to you now, if you have split the production line into stages, into group of workstations at one place, even if one stage breaks down for any reason, the other stage will continue its work such that its work parts get stored in the buffer. So one of the major reasons, one of the reasons why storage buffer is important. Next is to provide a bank of parts to supply the line. So parts, they can be collected into a storage unit and they can be automatically fed to a downstream manufacturing system. So this is going to permit the operations of the system, which are there, downstream operations, they can be functioned. So this is, the storage buffer is going to be like a supply for the stations which are on the downstream. Next is to provide a place to put the outputs of the line, of course. Instead of, suppose if there's a breakdown and the parts are not moving ahead, but you have a location where you can dump the parts until the workstation gets repaired. It will not get stocked up at the workstation and it will not just hamper the complete production. Rather, you will have a storage space, which is a temporary storage, wherein you can just save that, you can just store that. Then it is to allow for curing time or other process delays. So a curing time is required for some processing, such as say painting or adhesive, any of the operation which includes painting or adhesives. The storage buffer is designed to provide sufficient time for curing to occur before supplying the parts to the downstream station. So I hope all of you know what is curing time, right? A time which is given for something to get solidified. For example, if you consider this painting itself, right? So you give it some time so that it is going to get dried. If you have some adhesives applied, then you can just allow it to get settled down. So this storage buffer, if you have this accommodated in your production line, you can make the storage buffer in such a way that there is space enough for all the parts to move in that temporary, not move, but get stored into that temporary storage location, such that it can get cured and then it can be moved to the next station. Then lastly, to smooth cycle time variations. So although this is generally not an issue in automated production lines, because we assume that all the cycle time is going to be the same throughout. So it is relevant in manual production lines. Suppose if you're not having an automated production line, instead you're going for a manual production line, where there are these cycle time variations seen. In such a case where human interference is seen, and it is likely that the cycle time will vary from person to person, right? The operations that they perform. So in such cases, going for a storage buffer is going to be an advantage. So these are some of the reasons why storage buffers are used on automated production lines. So storage buffers, they are more readily accommodated in the design of an inline transfer machine than the rotary. So it's very easy to accommodate a storage buffer in inline type of transfer systems than the rotary ones. In rotary, usually we do not go for storage buffers, but it's not like impossible to have a storage buffer in a rotary transfer line. You can have it, but it is most preferred in inline type of transfer system. Okay, so is it clear what is storage buffer? Basically, you should know this diagram. Yes? Can I get a reply?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moving on to the next one, we'll discuss this and then stop. That is control of the production line. So controlling an automated production line is complex owing to the sheer number of sequential and simultaneous activities that occur during its operation. So yes, when we talk about an automated production line, things are going to be very much complex. And then controlling it becomes very important. So we will see the control of production line now. So here we will be discussing the basic control functions that are accomplished to run the line and controllers that can be used on automated lines. So first we will see the basic control functions that are accomplished to run the line, that is the control functions. So under control functions, there are three basic control functions which can be distinguished in the operation of an automated transfer machine. One is a sequence control, safety monitoring, and quality control. So as I said, when it comes to automating something, controlling that automated system is very important. Now control has to be in terms of the sequence control, of course, yes, because we have the automated production line in a certain sequence. You cannot have the workstations rearranging themselves or something like that. You need to follow a certain sequence. That sequence control is very important. Safety monitoring is yet another very important aspect because you have very less human intervention and safety of people working around it, and also the safety of the equipments themselves, which have such a huge investment, is very important. And next is the quality control. Automation has one of the major advantage of quality, and that needs to be monitored and controlled. So the purpose of sequence control is to coordinate the sequence of actions of the transfer system and associated workstations. So when we talk about sequence, everything has to go in a perfect sequence. The work transfer systems, suppose if you consider a work transport system like a robotic arm, it has to follow a certain sequence. It has to lift the parts from the station, it has to move it to that station. So all of these things have to be very well coordinated. The various activities of the production line, which must be carried out within split second timings and accuracy. There's so many activities, right? It has to happen in fraction of seconds. Suppose some parts have to be released from their current workstation, they have to be transported, located, they have to be clamped, they have to be positioned properly. All of these things have to be happening in split seconds. So here sequence control is very important. Next, moving to the safety monitoring function, it ensures that the production line does not operate in an unsafe manner. Okay, so safety applies here to both human workers in the area and the equipment itself. So additional sensors, they must be incorporated in the line. Suppose if you know that there are these different types of cutting tools that we are using, we have to keep monitoring the breakage of those cutting tools. Or suppose if a cutting tool is getting worn out, okay, also we have to check whether we are not feeding some wrong cutting tool. All of these things need to be monitored, and there can be some interlocks that can be used so that you can just prevent the equipment from operating when the workers are performing some maintenance or other duties. So that is also very important here. So this is about safety monitoring. And the third one, that is in quality control function, certain quality attributes of work parts are monitored. Okay. So this quality control, basically the purpose here is to detect and possibly reject the defective work units which are produced on the line. Okay, so you have to check every part and check out which is the defective part, and that has to be eliminated from the line. So the inspection devices are required to accomplish the quality control and sometimes incorporated into existing processing stations. Or if you cannot incorporate the inspection station. So if you remember at the start of the unit, I had told that automated production lines can also have inspection stations in between. Okay, so that stands important here. So if you can't have an automated inspection line, you can have a separate inspection station, which is going to help you in checking the desired quality characteristics of that particular part. Okay, so this is about the three basic control functions, that is sequence control, safety monitoring, and quality control. Now moving on to the last part of it, that is line controllers. So PLCs are the conventional controllers which are used on automated production lines today. Computer control offers the following benefits. So what is PLC? I hope you all know it is a programmable logic controller. These are basically used in almost all the automated systems, very effective. There is different section only that you can study about PLCs. What are PLCs? There are different ways in which PLCs can be programmed. Okay, there is this ladder logic diagram and all. So PLCs is completely a different chapter here, but here you can just understand that to control an automated system, here in our case it is an automated production line. PLCs are those which are conventionally used. Also there are these computer controls which we have, and they offer the following benefits. That is the computer control, they basically offer recording of data for subsequent analysis. So when it comes to recording of data, it's very important to check the reliability of the equipment. When you want to check the performance of an equipment, what is the product quality. So whenever it comes to checking all these things, a data has to be there. So a computer control can help you in recording all the data with respect to the complete production activities that are happening, and it can help you for all other subsequent analysis. Next is automatic generation of preventive maintenance schedule, which will indicate when certain maintenance activity should be performed. This will help you to reduce the frequency of downtime occurrence. So when you have a periodic maintenance schedule, you don't have to worry about the sudden breakdowns that happen. Okay, so you can have a preventive maintenance system in place, which will help in getting you an automatic preventive maintenance alert, so that you don't have to wait for the machine to break down and then go for maintenance work. You can just have these periodic maintenances done. One is diagnostic routines. Diagnostic routines are to check out the maintenance and repairs when the line breakdown occurs, and to reduce the duration of downtime incidences. So diagnostic routines are again these automated systems that are in place. If you have these diagnostic automated systems, whenever a breakdown occurs, with all their database, they can check out where exactly the problem is in a machine. Okay, so its diagnostic ability will help you to not waste your time in checking out the complete equipment. Suppose if the worker is not able to identify where the breakdown, what has actually happened to the equipment, in that place, these diagnostic routines help. They are going to help you in identifying what actually has happened, and it will help you to reduce the downtime. Downtime is the time spent in repair or maintenance work. Next is, it is more convenient human-machine interface. So with these computer controls that we have, it will help you to have a very convenient interaction between the human and the machine. The operator and the automated line can easily understand what things are happening with these interfaces in place. Okay, so we can stop here. We have almost discussed half of the unit, as it was completely theory based and not very difficult to understand. Till here you have for your first internal. This is the syllabus for your first internal. The syllabus for first internal is first unit complete and second unit till line controllers. I hope it is clear. All of you could hear me?
Yes, no.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So from tomorrow, for the tomorrow's class, I will start with analysis part, and most probably by next week we can finish this unit. Okay. Any doubts with respect to your first unit? You can contact your respective faculties, or as I have conducted the classes, you can just contact me with respect to any of the doubts. Okay, so we'll stop here. We will continue in tomorrow's class.
Thank you, ma'am.